Hey, friend. What's my shirt smell like? You're an idiot. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Black Blaze Gaming. I am Dakota. This is Lothric. Bump. Okay, so I can't believe I'm having to make this video again. Like, I haven't made a fucking ESO rant video in years. It's been like 2 years, I think, since the Morrowind rant. And a lot has changed, both in the game and in my life, and in like my knowledge of Elder Scrolls Online. Okay, he's gonna distract me this whole time. So there's a lot of controversy over the upcoming update 23, the Scalebreaker DLC, all that. And I wanted to kind of touch on some of the controversy. I'm in a bunch of different communities now, so I'm in like some of the end game rating, some of the end game training guilds as well. I'm in some of the newer communities that are people that are just starting out in the game, and there's people that are trying to learn and don't understand the whole hubbub over the changes and everything. So I'm gonna lay things down. Generally, I've been pretty quiet about this because like for the Wolf Hunter DLC, they're like, oh, let's make werewolves good, and they didn't really. They're more useful now, but generally in PvP, if you don't know how to deal with werewolves, it's really easy. Just stun the shit out of them and burst them down because they don't have any sustain. They're terrible, and I love that. Then Murkmire, everyone was all in a fucking tizzy over the fucking shield changes, which they thought was a nerf. I don't think it's a nerf. My mag sork got way stronger. Well, my sork tank got way stronger because of it. And they made everything else cheaper for mag sorks. Like, it just was a generally good update, I think. Then the racial changes I thought was cool. They're like, oh, let's bring new life and energy to each one of the races, make them play, uniquely and have their own play styles to them. And I was totally for that. I still am. I think the racial changes are pretty good. There's some that are really stupid. There's some races that just there's no point in playing, really. And then elsewhere, yes, they cut the balls off Nightblades. Yes, I made Nightblades, so that was kind of rough, but I still felt viable in endgame, and I still do. However, let's talk about Scalebreaker. First off, I've got to of course cover the biggest controversy right now, which is the energy orb changes. If you didn't know before, energy orbs are an undaunted skill that gives people resources back whenever they synergize with the orbs as you cast them. There's two morphs. There's the one that does damage and the one that does healing. Now, the heal version, which is the more common one, the heal is stronger and more frequent than Healing Springs, which is the main spammable of the healing role, basically. And there's a burst heal that goes with synergizing it that destroys the orb and gives you the resources as well as the heal. Now, generally, that burst heal isn't needed because by the time the orb gets to them, they've already been healed by the orb to full, and there's probably not a reason to even have the burst heal, honestly. They could just take it out. It wouldn't change anything. As long as it kept the resource gain back, that's totally fine. Generally, Templar healers are still preferred over other classes simply because orbs are really slow and take a long time to get to the targets. And with the really shitty collision in this game, they don't always even reach the target. Sometimes they just fall through the floor. Whereas being a Templar, you have shards, and shards will always hit where you want them to. They're pretty much immediate. And so they're guaranteed to go where you want them to go every time. But the issue is now becoming that what they're changing is that the energy orbs will now be slower, the heal is less potent, and you can only cast one at a time. Now, if you cast a second one while one is up, it'll destroy the current one and replace it with the new one that you just cast. Why? Like, I actually don't understand why. They posted this this follow-up, this context update to tell us kind of more what they were going for with this, but they didn't actually mention the energy orb changes. They said that let's see here. They said that the energy orbs, the synergy from the orbs will not cause the orb to vanish and can be activated multiple times by anyone not on its energy cooldown. Right. Great. Okay. However, why is it slower? Why is it slower? Like, there's no reason for it to be slower, right? And they reduced the heal from it, which I'm totally for. Like, I absolutely think they should be the healing should be brought down a little bit, because it's not really necessary to have that much healing from an ability that already gives back shitloads of resources. But why make them slower? And furthermore, why make it only one? Because, okay, you make it only one, but it can be synergized multiple times. Great. However, your group isn't always going to be stacked. So getting that orb to all of your team members isn't efficient anymore. Imagine a fight like Cloud Rest or Asylum Sanctorium, where people are all over the fucking place constantly, because that's what the emphasis has been on in recent content releases, has been mobility, movement, spreading out, being all over the fucking place, handling mechanics and stuff. And even the new Scalebreaker dungeons are a lot about that movement and staying active. So why the hell would we have only one orb? Effectively, what this does is it makes it so that Templars will now be the only really viable class for healing in endgame content. And that's bullshit. That's so shitty. Like, we've had so many ups and downs with other classes for healing, and Templars have always pretty much been the best. But more recently, we've been able to run other classes more effectively, and it's been okay. With this change, that won't be really viable anymore. And another big thing that a lot of people aren't taking into account is that other classes' AoE heals are being nerfed, are being brought down. And this is especially odd coming off of the Elsewhere update, where the Dragon Knight AoE heal Cinderstorm was buffed to be more useful, and now is being brought down again. Why? Like, I have a Dragon Knight healer. Yes, I get laughed at. Don't you worry. I made it for a good reason. But I have a Dragon Knight healer. No, I don't want her to be nerfed. And then on top of that, you have to think about this, where the orbs are the only way a non-Templar healer can get resources back to their team outside of running sets. So the thing about orbs is that it's in control of the player and their ability to use it, unlike Symphony of Blades or maybe Naventas, where they're going to help with resource management, but you can't really control how they help with resource management or who they help with resource management. And that's a major issue, especially when you're talking about uptimes on Alkosh or Locustes or Master Architect, whatever it is, right? Things that are synergy-based need to have those synergies. And so if you're not getting those, you're not having any usefulness from energy orbs, or not as much usefulness from energy orbs, you're taking that away from people, especially like Nightblade healers who don't even have an extra synergy to give to people to help them, proc their sets and whatnot. It's just silly to me. And so that aside, I mean, that nerf already absolutely ridiculous. Bonkers. Don't understand why they're doing it. It reduces the teamwork aspect of endgame stuff. But then they're nerfing Healing Springs too, and this is absolutely mind-boggling. So in recent times, I've actually come across some people who really don't make a lot of sense with their rating strategies. One of which who doesn't run Healing Springs on their healer at all. They think that Necro Healing doesn't require it. Another person who doesn't believe that Healing Springs really has much place in endgame content at all, despite the fact that a lot of the mechanics in endgame trials are pretty much exclusively survivable with springs. But okay. So what they're doing now, before, Healing Springs stacks only up to 3 times. And it's a very short AoE heal over time that does bring up a lot of, like, it does hit pretty hard. It's a really good heal. And it also restores magicka per ally healed with the initial hit, which is great, because you can really manage your magicka a little bit better with it now that that's the case. They're changing it so that the magicka return is going to be a little bit more effective if you have a bigger team. But for 4-man dungeons, it's not going to really do much, especially for like Scale Caller, where your team isn't stacked. You're going to be all over the fucking place constantly. So having them stay within the AoE to give you magicka back isn't going to help, and you can't stack it. You can only have one active at a time. So and they I think they reduced the heal too. Hold on, let me double check on that. But these changes are effectively making non-Templar healers less viable. And another reason for that is that they buffed Ritual Retribution, a Templar AoE heal, to, I would argue, unreasonable levels. And this is ridiculous. I can't. Yeah, they reduced the healing per tick of Grand Healing by about half, just under half. They reduced the cost, but that's great. That's it. So garbage, just generally a garbage skill now. Now, the thing with Ritual of Retribution, I want to read this verbatim so you understand what I'm talking about here. Actually, there's a guy who posted, please leave structured entropy alone. I love that. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Ritual Retribution with the update. This is on PTS right now. You and your allies are healed for 2,311 health every 2 seconds for 12 seconds, and enemies in the area take 2,484 magic damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. It also cleanses 2 harmful effects from yourself automatically, random of course, but 2 harmful effects are cleansed from yourself automatically, and then allies in the area can activate the Purify Synergy, healing them for 5,842 health while also cleansing all harmful effects from themselves instantly. No other skill in the game can clear all harmful effects, to my knowledge. Purge has a limit of 5. They're increasing another one of the cleanses to 3. Can't remember which one. But basically, what we're seeing here is that Ritual of Retribution, with its massive AoE, it's a 12-meter radius AoE, whereas Healing Springs is only 8 meters. So it's 150% the size of Healing Springs' AoE. And not only is it healing for as much as Healing Springs, which the tooltip here is just about 1,200 health every second. 1,200 health every second versus 2,300 health every 2 seconds. So it's about the same heal. And then also, Ritual Retribution is dealing damage. And this is compared to Blockade of Fire, which deals 1,287 flame damage every second, compared to the 2,400 magic damage every 2 seconds. So it's about the same damage output on that. And that's Blockade of Fire, not Blockade of Storm. So when you have a lightning staff equipped, you actually get more AoE damage. And then Ritual of Retribution is also this from this tooltip that he posted, the screenshot of Ritual of Retribution in this tooltip is actually only level 1, whereas the other two, Healing Springs and Blockade of Fire, are level 4. So this is entry level, and I just that just boggles my mind. How the fuck did they think this was okay? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And on top of this, Ritual Retribution scales with your highest offensive stats now. Not just magic. If you're a Stam Toon, you can run Ritual Retribution with the same efficiency, essentially, as a magic Toon. How does that make any sense? I mean, I get that it's a fairly expensive skill. It's 4180, which is, I mean, it's not that expensive. It's not like compared to Purge, which is 8k per cast, or Efficient Purge, which is over 5k. That's still ridiculous how a stamina user can smack down this AoE that cleanses your team, has a synergy that cleanses yourself, has a synergy that cleanses your team, plus it fucking heals and deals ridiculous damage over time. Why? What are you thinking, Zos? Like, you really just want to make Templars the only meta, right? Because that's all I can think of. And then Zos, of course, goes on to say, oh, well, there's Circle of what is it? Fucking they have it here in the additional context post. Let's see. Ring of Preservation. So this is a new update to the Circle of Protection morph in the Fighters Guild skill line. So now it's a stamina AoE heal that's healing over time. It's a small little AoE. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is a pretty small AoE. And it goes on to you. It's not a ranged AoE. and this is still stamina-based, but it is a stamina-based AoE heal, which is pretty cool. We don't have a lot of those. However, they're saying that's to help. They added the healing on that to make that offset the loss of things such as healing spring stacking. Right, but it's a stamina ability. So if you're a healer, which are generally magicka-based, I think 99.9% of healers are magicka-based, Ring of Preservation isn't going to do anything for you. And then they, of course, mention Cleansing Ritual. Templar ability. So Templars are going to be the meta. That's what you're saying. Templars are going to be meta. And on top of that, Ritual Retribution, of course, has the scaling off of your highest defensive stats. Ring of Preservation doesn't have that. So it's a stamina ability that scales off your stamina side of things. So what are you thinking, Zos? What the fuck? I can't even come up with a better rebuttal than what the fuck are you thinking, Zos? Anyways, now we have that, but then the other morph of the Circle of Protection in the Fighters Guild skill line is being changed from Turn Undead to Turn Evil. Now I liked the Turn Undead change where it affects. They fixed it so that it fears all undead, Daedra, and werewolves that are in the circle when you cast it. I think that's cool. Kind of useless because its utility function is to give you minor endurance, which you already get from most other skills, so, like buff skills, so it's like whatever. But they're changing it now to Turn Evil, so all enemies within the area of cast are going to be feared on cast, which effectively makes Mass Hysteria useless from the Nightblade skill line. And that's one of the only unique things about Nightblades is that they can fear 6 people at a time with Mass Hysteria. So we're just going to get rid of that. We're just not going to have that ability anymore, unique to our class. Fine, okay. But then they decided to take Flying Blade, one of the fucking dagger throwing dagger morphs. I can't remember the base skill name, but the throwing dagger morph from the dual skill line. They're changing Flying Dagger so that now, the whole change is that they're casting. When you cast it, it doesn't actually give you Major Brutality instantly, but the target you hit it with, if you hit that target with a light attack after you cast it on them, it'll give you 30 seconds of Major Brutality. It's a very confusing system. I don't know why they're doing that. But the Flying Dagger morph, now when you cast it on a target, you mark that target, and then it lets you cast the skill again for free against that target, and it will teleport you to them. So it becomes a gap closer. It's a ranged skill. As it stands, it becomes a gap closer as well. Again, why? That effectively makes Teleport Strike a useless skill for Nightblades to have, because Flying Blade is better, in general is better. So now Nightblades have no identity in the meta at all. They lost Major Defile for Stam Blades, which, I mean, Mag Blades still have it, but that's it. We don't have like anything now to make Nightblades unique. So Nightblades are effectively a dead class as of Scalebreaker if these changes go through. But here's what gets to me the most, and this is something I think needs to be really discussed the most. They released this context update on the PTS patch notes forum, and I'm going to read through this so you guys get what I'm talking about here. In Update 23, our main focus was to ensure that there was an ultimate point of reference for abilities to properly match up against one another in their respective categories. This provides us with a solid baseline where all abilities fit within a set of standards or power levels and allows future balancing passes to be much easier and timely. Okay, nothing wrong with that statement, nothing wrong with that idea, except when you say that this is the context for the changes that are currently going on into skills. Because that's not what you're doing with these skills. What you're doing is you're limiting the versatility of other classes and making it so everyone has to change their builds up. You're not balancing things. It's not bringing everything into line with each other. It's literally making Templars overpowered, and that's it. We'll talk about Eclipse later sometime, but the Eclipse changes are really getting under my skin too, because it basically makes Templars unstoppable in PvP. Okay, so they go on to say, we're aware that some content has been designed around old functionality abilities that existed beyond our standards and might need some sort of compromise in regards to how you engage with it or how we balance it. This is something we will be watching closely. However, we are not averse to the idea that players might need to adjust their current builds, such as running more defensive ultimates rather than offensive ones, or running more survival-enhancing sets rather than pure damage or buff-oriented sets. Pardon? So so what they're saying, in essence, as far as I can interpret, is that they are okay with there no longer being min-maxing in Elder Scrolls Online. No longer are they're okay with there no longer being people able to run damage class damage rolls at all. You're not damage anymore. You're hybrid. You have to be able to self-sustain completely. Why? Okay, if that's the way you want to take the game, that's your prerogative, Zos. It's a totally viable way to take the game in if you want. However, let me put it to you this way. One of the great things, like somebody commented like this. Somebody's like, "Oh well, you think it's anti-fun to fucking not be able to hit 100k plus DPS?" Yes, and I'll tell you why. The reason is because one of the most fun things about an RPG with this much customization and you know, we have classes that, you know, all the classes in the game can do any role, which is super fun right now because I've made such weird off-the-wall builds work. My Sorcerer tank, my Dragon Knight healer. I have weird builds and I love them. And even, especially PvP. The PvP customization is nuts. There's so many things that you can do. There's so many niches you can fill. But basically with this, what they're doing is they're saying that it will no longer be viable necessarily to push yourself to the limit and really see how far you can take a build while sacrificing all of something, right? So I'm a Stamblade. Before the Elsewhere patch, I had no survivability. So all of my survivability was based on my skill as a player, and I would argue that I'm one of the most survivable Stamblades on the North American server. I did Vet Cloud Rest running Orbs in an all Stam DPS run without dying. I didn't die once. I was running Orbs in downstairs on all the fights. So that survivability that I had back then was based on my skill. Now, they made us quite a bit more tanky in the Elsewhere update, giving us damage reduction by having stacks on our Grim Focus, and also gaining extra resources back whenever we cast light attacks while on our bow bar with the in-cap strike up slotted on that. So, okay, you made us more tanky, you made us have a slightly better resource gain, which actually I felt a nerf. I didn't actually feel like we had better resource gain after Elsewhere. I felt way worse about my resources. But regardless, I sacrificed all of my survivability. I don't wear 511 armor pieces. I wear all medium now. I don't have any, health enchantments. I don't have any extra, I don't have protective traits in my jewelry. I'm not running Vicious Ophidian for the sustain. I'm just not. And I'm running all offensive abilities. I don't really have offensive or buff abilities. I don't have any defensive abilities anymore at all. Actually, after the Elsewhere update, I took off Vigor. Another thing about Vigor, they're changing that so it's no longer an AoE heal, unless you get the other morph, the Echoing Vigor morph. But Resolving Vigor is just a self-heal now, which is, whatever. They're going to get rid of all of other healing abilities, but then say, oh, you have other options? No, you don't. So now my build is essentially... Well, first of all, I'm losing my identity completely as a Stamblade. There'll be no point for me to play a Nightblade after the Scalebreaker update if this goes through. So not only that, but also all the work that I've put into being really good at mechanics and surviving mechanics because I'm skilled. All that means nothing to them now. So me having the Shadowbreaker title means nothing because I might have gotten it at a time when Stamblades were not very survivable, but now anybody can get that fucking title really easily as long as they're just running one defensive set or one defensive ultimate or what the fuck ever. And yet they nerf fucking sets like Phoenix and Immortal Yokita, which I'm very okay with them nerfing because a lot of people just cheesed no-death runs by running those sets, and I think that's ridiculous. All the no-death runs I've ever gotten have been gotten on my regular end-game DPS builds. So I think people who use those sets are just ridiculous anyways. And then, the fact that they're nerfing that is great. I love how that change is being considered. However, now they just want every fucking individual character to be completely self-sustaining and survivable. and making the healing roll next to useless again, giving Templars an ability that's basically the old healing path from the Nightblade skill line before Murkmire, making that, but on steroids, because the AoE is much bigger, and I think it heals and deals more damage. It heals more and deals more damage than Healing Path ever did. So basically, what this all amounts to is that healers will only be Templars after Scalebreaker if this change goes through. The only thing that was making non-Templar healers viable was energy orbs, giving back resources, but now it's less efficient than literally any other source of resource gain in the game, so there's no point in running them. And they're taking away the min-maxing, the crazy challenging builds that we've put together over the years are no longer meaningful in any way. And I play other RPGs. One of my favorites to play recently has been Divinity Original Sin 2. Now, that game is a game that really doesn't have any limits. And yes, I would argue there's some overpowered abilities in there. However, it's about your ability to put them together on your own that really makes them special. I have a build, it's total glass cannon. I go in, I can like destroy half the field in one turn, and I usually spend the rest of the fight dead after that, if I don't go invisible. But like that power, that structure to my build was all from my own brain and my own ability to put things together in a way that made sense to me that I wanted to play. And it's a super fun way to play. I don't feel overpowered because the game is still really challenging. The game punishes me for making mistakes. Like it's very, very well balanced overall, though there are some skills I would argue are overpowered as hell. But that's what I find is fun in the game, is really pushing yourself to the limits by taking the most advantage of what the game has to offer you out the gate. Whereas this update is basically changing it so that it's no longer about that. It's no longer about really testing the limits of the game by sacrificing something else to get there. Like a tank sacrificing damage to be more survivable, or a healer sacrificing damage to be more... Well, healers don't really sacrifice anything. I mean, they can still deal a decent amount of damage while healing. Healers have the least identity of any of the roles right now. And then DPS sacrificing all survivability to put out the most damage, because there were so many damage checks in the game before. And now a lot of things really require you to be more survivable as a damage dealer, which I'm very okay with. I love that feature. However, it's not working. It's not going to work like that anymore. It's not going to be difficult to survive those mechanics anymore. And it's going to be like things like Alpha Predator titles and Hersine's Chosen titles are no longer going to be difficult to get. I mean, already they nerfed the shit out of March of Sacrifices anyways, but that's another story. So I'd love to hear more feedback from the community on this. I only know one person who's okay with this upcoming change on the energy orbs. But this is a guy who can't even clear fucking Vetatherian archive properly, without constantly dying and failing to really hold up to really contribute anything valuable to the team other than the Necro resurrection ult. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. I'd love to hear why Brian Wheeler of ZeniMax posted this context update, even though he's the lead PvP designer, not PvE, so I don't... Like, why is he the fucking spokesperson for this shit? Who the fuck knows? I don't know what their system's like there, but good lord. So yeah, I'd love to hear you guys' feedback, and honestly, if you have any questions, let me know. I really have a lot to say on this, a lot more than I've said already, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface, and there's probably going to end up having to be more videos that I make based on this subject, because it's just so ingrained in my head how fucked up this is. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Make sure to say hi to Star Enchantress and Rutile Heart whenever you see them in game. They're really nice people, really good friends of mine. And that's it for now.
Woo.